I often get asked the question, what are the sources of power in negotiation? If you often feel completely powerless in a negotiation, or that you're lacking in leverage, or if you wonder whether there are ways you can increase your power and achieve better outcomes, then this video is for you. I am Bob Bordone, the founder and principal of the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. I'm also a senior fellow at Harvard Law School, where I founded and directed the Harvard Negotiation and Mediation clinical program for several decades. In this video, you're going to learn about the two main sources of power in negotiation and how to have an outsized influence in a negotiation, even if you think you don't have much power. First, let me offer you a really simple but also really usable definition for what we mean by power in negotiation. In the field, there's lots and lots of definitions, and some of them are pretty complex and frankly not that useful. But when I think about power in negotiation, I have a really simple definition. It's your ability to persuade. And there are really two sources or types of power in negotiation. The first is what we call structural power, and the second is what we call interpersonal power. So when we think of structural power in negotiation, I think this is what people mostly imagine when they say,
I don't have much power here.
So structural power is kind of inherent to the nature of the players. So for example, who might have more resources to bring to a particular negotiation? Who might have more money to bring? Sometimes they're what we call information asymmetries. So for example, in an employment situation, it may be that an employer knows a lot more about salaries within their company, salaries in the field, what they pay similarly situated people than, for example, the employee. Power might be the ability to use force. So for example, in a negotiation between the United States and maybe some small country with a small military, the United States has more structural power because there's a bigger military. We might think of structural power as who has a better BATNA, who has a better alternative to a negotiated agreement. So when I hear people say,
I don't have power here,
I think often what they mean is, I don't have structural power here. So let me offer some tips on how you can actually improve your structural power in a negotiation. One way you do this is by researching external standards or criteria before coming to the negotiation table. Let me give you an example of this. Some years ago, I was working with a set of employees, all of whom complained that their employer basically made salary negotiations a black box, right? Nobody actually knew what anybody else was getting paid or what might be fair. So a suggestion that I had, because people didn't really want to individually reveal their salaries, but I just said, well, how about you do this? How about you create some kind of an anonymous Google form where people can put their salary into that form, but nobody will know whose salary it is. By doing this, the set of employees at least got some idea of what were the criteria or standards that the company was using to set salaries for people at the same level. Another thing you can do really relates to putting more possible options on the table. So if someone with more power gives you a take it or leave it offer, don't just leave it at that, actually give them some other things to think about, some other possible options. So another thing you might do is really change the deadlines or time constraints. So for example, if you are, let's say, a book author who has put forward a book proposal, you might get a response from a publisher with a nice offer, but they might say to you something like,
we need to know by Friday at 4 p.m.
Now, the truth of the matter is all this really is manufactured chaos on the part of a big, powerful publisher. Because it's not the case, for example, that Russian troops are amassed at the border and there's an emergency. It's not the case that the US government is going to be closed down Friday at 4 p.m. It's simply someone with a lot of power creating an imaginary deadline to make the perceived lower power person feel panicked.
All right, nobody panic.
So a way to respond is simply to slow that negotiation down by pre-announcing when you will be able to respond and in some sense call the bluff. Another thing you could do is really improve your BATNA, improve your alternative to a negotiated agreement. So let me give you a real example that involves Disney and the platform on which you are all watching this, YouTube. So specifically, this is a dispute that occurred between YouTube TV, so the paid version of YouTube, and Disney. So at the end of 2021, YouTube's contract with Disney to carry Disney-owned platforms on its paid YouTube TV platform was set to expire. Specifically, it was going to expire on December 15th. What you need to know by way of background is that the Disney company owns some really popular channels. So ABC, Disney, ESPN, FX, National Geographic, just to name a few. So if Disney was to pull all of their programs from YouTube TV on December 15th, it would seriously hurt YouTube TV because YouTube TV needs that content desperately. And if that content left, many subscribers to YouTube TV would simply disappear. They would move on to Sling or to Hulu or to another platform. So with respect to structural power, Disney had all the leverage.
Advantage? I am giving you the advantage. Enjoy.
So if you're YouTube here, right, you have a pretty bad BATNA. Because you're going to lose some of the most important content on your platform. Your subscribers have a really good BATNA, right? They just go on to Sling or Hulu. And Disney has a great BATNA.
You have a deal? Deal or no deal? Let's make a deal.
So what does YouTube TV do? Well, on December 2nd, it announces to its subscribers that when the Disney deal ended on December 15th, it would reduce its subscription fee by $15. Now, how does that help? Well, it turns out that the subscription for Disney Plus is $13.99. So what YouTube TV was essentially saying, please don't leave us. We're going to give you your $15 back. And if you really want Disney content, you'll just be able to go out and buy Disney Plus. So the BATNA of everybody leaving suddenly is improved because people aren't going to leave. But what this also does is substantially change Disney's calculus in this negotiation. Because yes, it is true that some percentage of people who subscribe to YouTube TV will in fact go off and pay $13.99 to have Disney Plus. But the vast majority of them actually aren't going to do that. So what has happened here is Disney will lose its deal with YouTube TV. It will not make it up because it's not the case that 100% of YouTube TV subscribers are going to go off and buy Disney Plus. And so the structure of the negotiation foundationally changes. So what ends up happening? Well, it won't surprise you to know that on December 17th, just 2 days after Disney pulls its content from YouTube TV, they pen a new deal. So changing the structure of this negotiation completely changed the power dynamic from Disney's favor and into YouTube TV's favor. So let me talk next about what is interpersonal power. So when we talk about interpersonal power in negotiation, I think people often miss this when they say they have no power. Interpersonal power relates to your ability to be a good active listener, your ability to change a positional negotiation into a negotiation talking about interests, your ability to think creatively out of the box. It also includes your ability to draw upon moral arguments or normative standards that can blunt the abuse of power. Interpersonal power also involves your ability to perhaps change the players in some way. So just to give you an example, imagine a situation where you have been working with, let's say, the procurement person of a big anonymous company. And that big anonymous company has a huge amount of power because there are any number of suppliers who could supply the product that you are supplying to this company. And the procurement person has been incredibly challenging to deal with, right? They're just using all of their power. But if you are really good at developing a set of relationships internally at that company that understands not only how the procurement person is promoted, but also who else in the organization might care about the level of service your company provides, the quality of the product your company provides, you can then figure out a way to deploy those relationship skills with other people in this big, powerful company to work backwards and build a winning coalition to win your deal.
It's just nice to win one.
So, when you are thinking about having low or no power in negotiation, I always want you to remember, first of all, there can be ways to change the structure of the negotiation. But secondly, so many of the at-the-table negotiation skills that we have talked about in many of these videos, from good listening, to moving from positions to interests, to changing the players, to understanding and building trusting relationships, can help you leverage yourself from a low-power situation to a high-power situation, and then really create some value at the negotiation table. So if you want to learn more about how to build structural and interpersonal power in your negotiations, please keep watching these videos. and consider taking a course with me at the Cambridge Negotiation Institute. In addition, I want to direct you to the video, How to Improve Your Negotiation Skills. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. I'm Bob Bordone. Let's keep on negotiating together. Here's the video I promised.